Hello viewers, this is your SSK and today we have an interesting story from Chandamama and the name of the story is Boomerang. When Brahmadatta was king in Banaras, he had a Purohit who called Pingala. This man had a tawny brown complexion, a bald head and a toothless mouth. Bodhisattva, who was born as a young man named Takkariya, was Pingala's pupil and lived with him. Now Pingala and a brother-in-law whom he hated like poison, he too had a tawny brown complexion, a bald head and a toothless mouth. Pingala had made several attempts to destroy his brother-in-law, but those attempts had all failed. Finally, he thought of a new plan to destroy his enemy. He went to the king and said, "O king, Benares is the greatest city of Bharat, and you are the greatest king in the country. For this reason, it is all more regrettable that there should be a fault in the building of your fort. The fault is in our south gate, and it is bound to bring your evil unless it is corrected at once, not to speak of the bad name it gets us. I pray that this defect should be rectified without the least delay." "How can we rectify it?" the king anxiously asked Pingala the Purohit. "The gate must be pulled down," Pingala replied. "Then another gate must be prepared out of auspicious timber. After selecting a favorable conjunction of the planets, necessarily sacrifice should be made to the gods and the new gate erected." Having obtained the king's permission to change the south gate, Pingala ordered the old gate to be pulled down and had the new gate made by the carpenters. As soon as the new gate was ready, Pingala went to the king and said, "O king, the new gate is ready. Tomorrow is an ideal day for erecting it. Kindly give me the authority to carry out the sacrifice and the erection of the new gate." "Tell me," said the king, "what you require for the sacrifice." "We must sacrifice a Brahman who has a tawny brown complexion, a bald head and a toothless mouth," Pingala said. "The mighty spirits who are to guard this gate should be sated with the flesh and blood of such a Brahman. Then he should be buried and the new gate erected over him." "Well said the king. Find such a Brahman, sacrifice him to the gods and erect the new gate. You have my permission." At last, Pingala had the king's permission to kill his hated enemy in the name of sacrifice, and Pingala gloated in the success of his devilish scheme. Going home in glee, he boasted to his wife, "Tomorrow your brother is a dead man. I shall sacrifice him to the new gate." He was so tipsy with rum that he did not exert the least caution in concealing his plan. "Why should you sacrifice my brother?" the wife asked him. How could the king agree to it? "I did not tell the king whom I intend to sacrifice. I only told him that I want a Brahmin of tawny brown complexion, bald and toothless." And the king agreed. "Tomorrow I shall take the gods to your brother's house, show him to them, and tell them that he will do for the sacrifice. No one can hinder me from getting him." The wife did not speak any more on the subject, but that very night she went word to her brother, and then he should flee the city before sunrise, acquainting him with her husband's scheme. Pingala's brother-in-law realized the danger which he faced, collected 2 or 3 others of his own description that lived in the city, and left the city before dawn. In the morning, Pingala went to the king and said, "O king, the man who is required for the sacrifice lives in such and such place. Send your men to fetch him here." The king dispatched his men. They went to the place mentioned by Pingala and learned that the one who was required had fled the city during the night, and came back to report the same to the king. "Who is to be done now?" said the king anxiously. "Where can we find another man of that description?" "O king," the minister said, "that is not a great problem. Our Purohita answers to that description in all respects. Let him be the sacrifice beast." "It can be done, of course," said the king thoughtfully, "but I shall be short of a Purohit. See if you can find someone good enough to substitute him as my Purohit. Our Purohit has a disciple called Takariya, the ministers replied. He is said to be cleverer than his teacher. You can have the young man as your new Purohit. Good, said the king. Takariya was sent for. You shall be my Purohit from now on. The king said to him, have this Pingala sacrificed and the new gate erected over his remains. Takariya proceeded to the south gate. Pingala was decorated and garlanded like a sacrificial beast, tied hand and foot, and taken to the south gate. At the spot where the sacrifice to be made, a deep pit was dug. Takariya entered the pit with his teacher. Ah, my dear fellow, said Pingala, shedding tears. See how I myself entered the pit which I have dug for someone else. Sir, said Takariya, one who talks too much is bound to come to grief, but do not be grieved. I shall inform the king that the correct conjunction of the planet does not occur until the midnight. I shall so manage that you will be able to escape under the cloak of darkness. Thus he arranged the sacrifice at midnight. He let Pingala escape and buried a dead goat in the pit, filled it, and erected the new gate before dawn.